Hello everyone. Today we're going to review the movie Passengers. I just realized actually that this movie is 6 years old, which is crazy because I remember going to see this in theaters and I don't think I've watched it since then. So it's been quite some time since I've seen this movie and I can't believe it's been 5 years. It seems like when you look back on some of the stuff that you've done in the past, you're like, holy, has it really been that long? Like, where does the where does the time go on some things? Because I thought this movie was only like 3 years old, but I guess time flies sometimes, and you don't really realize it when it's passing. But I guess that is kind of a fitting theme for this movie because that's what this movie is kind of about in a way, uh, the passing of time, and not well. I guess they weren't really supposed to wake up before they reached their final destination, but unfortunately they did. They were passengers aboard this ship called the Avalon that was traveling to something two. Why can't I think of the name of it? Hold on here, just a second. Anyhow, so the Avalon is traveling through space. In the beginning of the movie, no passengers are awake. It tells you the crew, and the passengers were 5,000. I can't remember the exact size of the crew, but let me just look up here. Passengers. Oh, come on, it's got to tell me. Homestead 2, that's where they were going. So they are all traveling to this new planet, planet called Homestead 2, and it is going to take them, I don't know, an X amount, like over 100 years anyway. And they've been traveling for 30 when the Avalon begins to hit an asteroid field, and unfortunately one of the asteroids was too big for the shield, and the ship malfunctions, and one of the pods opens up on James. What was it? James. James Preston, but he goes by Jim. So he wakes up, and he obviously is disoriented. He's not supposed to be awake. It says he spent, I think it was 120 years in suspended animation. So obviously the ship was programmed for him to wake up on the Homestead 2 planet. But obviously he's woken up way too early. So he realizes that the ship has only been traveling for 30 years, and it has another 90 years to go before it reaches its final destination. He doesn't know why he woke up. He just knows that it was a malfunction, obviously. He spends a whole year by himself, to the point where he almost commits suicide by basically going out of the I don't know, view. It was kind of like a viewing area, but you could actually like go outside of the ship, and you were tethered on. And he almost hits the button to go out and just dump himself into space, basically. Or yeah, to dump himself into space. I don't know why I say basically all the time, but anyhow, yeah, he almost does it without the suit on, and then realizes that he has to find some sort of companion, or at least in his mind he does, because he's been alone for a whole year. So when he's running back in, he trips and falls over the bottle of liquor that he threw on the ground beforehand. Because he feels so alone at this point, he finds this pod with this girl named Aurora in it. He begins looking up her file. He finds her funny. He kind of battles himself on whether he should open her pod or not. And eventually he does, and he automatically regrets it. He acts like it was another malfunction. Eventually they start a relationship and they kind of fall in love with one another, to the point where the bartender is a robot, and Jim tells him not to say anything to Aurora, to let him tell her himself about him opening the pod. Then one night when they're getting together for a date, he was about to, I believe, propose to her, and he says there's no secrets between them anymore. So the bartender says, I remember this night a year ago. Jim was waiting. Uh, Jim was waiting to see you or meet you for the first time, and she says, was waiting. And he said, yeah, he didn't know whether to open your pod or not. So Aurora finds out that Jim was the one who who opened her pod, and obviously she isn't very happy with him. At one point, she even comes into his room at night and almost kills him, but she can't go through with it. Eventually, another crew member wakes up. By this point, Jim's already figured out how to start like his own little ecosystem. He's able to plant a tree on the ship. They do end up finding out what's wrong with the ship. One of the chunks of meteorite came in, blew a hole through the ship, obviously because the shield, I believe the shield malfunctioned. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. But the shield did malfunction at the beginning of the movie, which is probably what caused the power down and for Jim to wake up, obviously. So now they have to find the issue. I believe it was the main control room that was overheating, and when they try to close the valve together, it won't close because it's too hot. So Jim has to go outside and open the door himself. When he gets out there, he realizes that he can't leave. He has to keep the door held open, and Aurora has to close or pull the lever to close it to air out the main control. And so Jim stands there. He almost dies in that situation too. Aurora has to bring him back in and resuscitate him, because I guess that was kind of the moment where she forgave him for what he had done, because even though she knew that he had opened her pod himself, she still loved him because she had fallen in love with him. So she does end up forgiving him in the end of the movie in her own way, and she did bring him back to life, because if she was still upset with him, she probably just would have let him go out there and die in space. But she does save him, and then he does end up proposing to her, and they do end up getting married, and they spend the rest of their life together. And then when they finally reach Homestead 2, the rest of the crew wakes up, and they realize that there's this whole, like, all these trees are planted, all this vegetation's grown. Seems like there's animals on the ship now. I'm not really sure how that would have happened, but there's birds on the ship. I don't know whether maybe Jim built them. Maybe they're not even like real animals, because I know that he was an engineer, so it is possible that he could have over the years learned how to build these animals. I don't know. That is kind of interesting, actually. I would like to know how he figured out how to do that anyway. But yeah, I guess they just lived out their life happily. I guess Aurora does forgive Jim for what he did, because they end up being together. She says that she wouldn't be able to live on the ship without him, so obviously they did love one another, even though Aurora said at one point in time that they weren't, if it was on Earth, they were likely to have never met, but I guess fate kind of brought them together in a way. So this was definitely a good movie. I mean, if this happened in real life, it would be crazy. It was lucky that at least an engineer woke up and was able to save the ship, because 5,000 people dying to go colonize a new place is pretty crazy, and that would be a crazy death toll. Because obviously, I mean, it's not that far-fetched, I guess, now, because I guess we're trying to find new planets to live on now, and I guess maybe not too far in the future, some of us may have an opportunity to do this. I'm not really sure how far in the future. Maybe not in my lifetime, but who knows? Maybe in my lifetime. I mean, I haven't hit 30 yet, so who knows? Anything could happen, right? Within the next 15 to 20 years. I don't know. It would be interesting. I would love to do something like that, travel to a new planet and live on it for a few years, maybe for the rest of my life, depending on how old I am when I decide to go. If that is even an option in my lifetime, I think space travel would be cool. Something really cool to do. Something like that. So yeah. Anyway, this movie is definitely a 10 out of 10. The acting was good. Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt really do well together. I would say I would like to see more movies with them acting together. Hopefully they do another movie. Maybe even another space movie together. That would be pretty cool. And I did forget that Lawrence Fishburne was in this. He wasn't in it for very long because unfortunately, when his pod opened up, there was a whole bunch of malfunctions and he ends up dying. But because of that, unfortunately. But yeah, there was a lot of. This movie was really good, suspenseful at certain times, and a lot of hard decisions had to be made in this movie. Definitely, and you can really tell what the toll of being alone for a long period of time takes on your mind, because it does play tricks on you, and it definitely makes you do things that you probably wouldn't do in other situations. So yeah, kudos to the director of this movie. I don't know his name, but whoever did direct it, kudos to you, because you did a fantastic job on casting and all that. And the storyline of this film was fantastic. So yeah, definitely go watch this movie if you haven't seen it. And I think that's all I have to say for this film. I believe I've covered everything now, at least that I can cover. So please comment, share, and subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts on this film if you've seen it. If you haven't, please go watch this movie, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.